2 Kings chapter 10, judgment upon Ahab's house. Ahab had 70 sons and grandsons in Samaria, so Jehu wrote letters and sent them to Samaria, to the rulers of Jezreel, to the elders, and to the guardians of the children of Ahab, saying, Now as soon as this letter comes to you, since your master's son, your male descendants, are with you, as well as chariots and horses and a fortified city and weapons, select the best and most capable of your master's son and set him on your father's throne, and fight for your master's house. But they were extremely afraid and said, Look, the two kings did not stand before Jehu, so how can we stand? And the one who was in charge of the household and the one who was overseer of the city, the elders and the guardians of the children, sent word to Jehu, saying, We are your servants, and we will do whatever you tell us, but we will not make any man king. So do what is good in your eyes. Then Jehu wrote a second letter to them, saying, If you are with me and will obey me, take the heads of your master's son and come to me at Jezreel tomorrow about this time. Now the dead king's sons, 70 persons, were with the great men of the city who were rearing them. And so when the letter came to them, they took the king's sons and slaughtered them, 70 persons, and put their heads in baskets, and sent them to Jehu at Jezreel. When a messenger came and told him, they brought the heads of the king's sons, put them in 2 heaps at the entrance of the city gate until morning. The next morning he went out and stood and said to all the people, You are just and innocent. Behold, I conspired against Joram my master and killed them. But who killed all these? Know then without any doubt that there shall fall to the earth nothing of the word of the Lord, which the Lord spoke concerning the house of Ahab. For the Lord has done what he said through his servant Elijah. So Jehu killed all who remained at the house of Ahab and Jezreel, and all his great men and his familiar friends and his priests, until he left with him without a survivor. And he set out and went to Samaria. On the way he was at the place of sand heaps for the shepherds. And Jehu met the relatives of Ahaziah, the king of Judah, and said, Who are you? And he says, We are relatives of Ahaziah, and we came down to greet the royal princes and the sons of the queen's mother, Jezebel. Then Jehu said, Take them alive. So they took them alive and later slaughtered them at the well by the place of the sand heaps. 42 men. He left none of them alive. Okay, so let's read a little bit at the bottom here. It says, righteousness. Jehu declared Ahab's great men innocent at the death of Ahab's 70 sons, or as the Hebrew would translate, literally just or righteous. They were righteous in the same sense that Jehu himself was, in that God had ordered the death of Ahab's family, and they actually carried out God's orders. However, this did not mean that these men could be considered righteous in any other sense. They had already thrown in their lot with Ahab and his wicked ways, and they were his great men, and as such they had to meet the same fate as the rest of his family. They had almost accidentally been obedient to God's will, but their hearts were still for the enemy. Okay, so now, and it says they left none of them alive. And so when Jehu went on from there, he met Jehonadab, the son of Rechab, coming to meet him, and he greeted him and said to him, Is your heart right as my heart is with you? Jehonadab answered, It is. Jehu said, If it is, give me your hand. He gave him his hand, and Jehu pulled him up into the chariot, and he said, Come with me and see my zeal for the Lord. So he had Jehonadab in his chariot. When Jehu came to Samaria, he killed everyone who remained of Ahab's family until he had destroyed all of them in accordance with the word of the Lord, which he had spoke to Elijah. Jehu destroys the Baal worshippers. Jehu assembled all the people and said in pretense to them, If Ahab served Baal, Jehu will serve him much worse. Much more. Now summon unto me all the prophets of Baal, all his worshippers and all his priests. Let no one be missing, for I have a great sacrifice for Baal. Whoever is missing shall not live. But Jehu did it with trickery in order to destroy the worshippers of Baal. Jehu said, Consecrate a festive assembly for Baal, and they proclaimed it. Then Jehu sent throughout Israel, and all the worshippers of Baal came, and there was no one left who did not come. They went to the temple of Baal, and to the house of Baal was filled from one end to the other. And he said to the man in charge in the wardrobe, Bring out garments for all the worshippers of Baal. And he brought the garments out to them. And then Jehu with Jehonadab, the son of Rechab, went into the house of Baal, and he said to the worshippers of Baal, Search carefully and see that there are no servants of the Lord here with you, but only the worshippers. So they went in to offer sacrifice and burnt offerings. Now Jehu had stationed 80 men outside for himself, and said, If any of the men whom I have brought into your hands escape, the one who lets him go shall forfeit his own life for that man's life. Then it came about, as soon as they had finished offering their burnt offerings, that Jehu said to the guards and to the royal officers, Go in and kill them, and let no one come out. And they killed them with the edge of the sword, and the guard and the royal officers threw their bodies out and went to the inner room of the house of Baal. They brought the sacred pillars, the obelisks of the house of Baal, and burned them. They also torn down the sacred pillar of Baal and tore down the house of Baal and made it into a latrine, forever unclean to this day. Thus Jehu eradicated Baal from Israel. However, Jehu did not turn from the idolatrous sins of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, who made Israel sin, that is, led them to worship the golden calves which were in Bethel and Dan. The Lord said to Jehu, because you have done well in executing what is right in my eyes, and have done to the house of Ahab in accordance with everything that was in my heart, your sons shall sit on Israel's throne to the 4th generation. But Jehu did not take care to walk in the law of the Lord, the God of Israel, with all his heart. So he did not turn from the sins of Jeroboam and who made Israel sin. So in those days the Lord began to cut off portions of Israel. Hazael defeated them throughout the territory, and Jehoshaphat succeeds Jehu. Now the rest of the acts of Jehu and everything that he did and all his mights are written in the book of Chronicles of the kings of Israel. Jehu slept with his fathers in death, and they buried him in Samaria. And Jehoshaphat, his son, became king in his place. In that time Jehu reigned over Israel in Samaria for 28 years. So Jahab is completing this, he's going through and completing the judgment against Ahab's family and tears down all those Baal worshippers, but he does all these things right, but his heart doesn't fully turn to God. So it's like you see that little bit of obedience and then not at all. And it's like a picture that even though you have obedience in one area, it doesn't like just cover every devotion for all the areas. Do you know what I mean? And so you got to have obedience in all your areas, not just one. For God, everything in your days. So, all right, we are reading, learning. It's been exciting. So I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.